and then derive what we think the language should be just for our community. And from that point, now you say Briarwood's unique, but Highsaw has much the same issues with lot sizes.
Well, I'm just using that as an
right,
example.
but I'm just saying it's got to be a citywide. It can't be a focused area for taking advantage of one segment of our population here within the city boundaries. But all we need to do, this was just simply a stimulation of thought. To strike out, to modify, to justify, to do whatever it takes to make this fit our city. This was not, but the mayor last meeting said that, listen, if we don't get together and work this out, we're voting on it next, that's what he's going to put on the agenda.
Voting on this?
That's right. And so I felt like we've already burned up several months trying to get to this point. And I'm not going to bring up anybody's name at this point, but we didn't have a quorum. So we need to address these issues. And from that point, I know, laughing off. But at that,
I'm laughing at you, John.
But the thing about it is, Ms. Strauss, we have jobs. You
why
don't.
Don't we just put this to a vote at the council and see how it goes? And if you want to pass them all, we'll pass them all. But if the most of us don't,
we're
then
not
we
here
won't.
to do the pass them all.
I understand that tonight, but the urgency that the mayor has put on us is at the January meeting, we better come up with something to vote on.
We're supposed to
so
be
if
a body.
We're going to vote on these.
We're supposed to be
May
a
I
body.
finish?
We're supposed to be a body that makes decisions for the benefit of our city on a timely basis, not as a whipping post to take out our emotional needs on.
Like you do.
No, ma'am. I'm here to serve the public with what we're supposed to do.
Well, these
we took
ordinances
time
are
off
not
from our
doing it.
jobs to meet that need. We show up and somebody did not show up that does not have a job.
Let it go.
But at this point, Ms. Strauss, we're going to address some of these ordinance needs. We need to be someone that's proactive in these measures.
Let's talk about the sidewalk one. Can we talk about the sidewalk ordinance right now? I personally
I
do
thought
not.
we were just going to kind of list some.
We're going to make lists of what ordinances we need to
Before we
address,
go
and
in
that's
depth
where we
on it.
go. We can talk about the flies on the dead fish out there if you want to, but it's not going to help us to discuss that.
Okay, well, before me is a sidewalk ordinance. I would like to just say that I don't feel it is necessary for it to go on the list. Is that okay with you, John?
Ms. Strauss, please address me as Mr. Graham.
Mr. Graham, excuse
Ms.
me
Strauss,
for the...
Ms. Strauss, I will address the fact that we will not put the word sidewalk on this list. Is that what you want me to write down?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we will not put sidewalk on this.
I don't believe we need a sidewalk ordinance, John. Mr. Graham.
Mr. Graham.
I'd like to see
Got it.
some type of, and I'm not talking about a gun ordinance like this, I'm talking about something to cover automatic weapons, semi-automatic weapons, and something.
This is what we're looking for. You want to address, this was a list of things to address.
I'd like to see some sort of.
We'll
gun
make another
ordinance.
list for Ms. Strauss of things like flies on fish, okay? But what I'm getting to is,
Thank you for the respect, Mr. Graham.
you're quite warranted, Ms. Strauss. But with that said, let's start making a list and make this a meeting that we are constructive about. Then come back and start discussing these other issues in a more thorough way and derive them for our own little community, as I've said before. So what would you like on the list and not off the list is fine. I will write it down.
Can I say something? I'm gonna say this again, just like I said from the start, because apparently I wasn't received. First of all, I think that we need to compile ordinances that fit our community. And I don't think it needs to be this phone book, and I think that they can be compiled over a period of time, if not years.
I thought we'd already agreed on that part.
Absolutely.
Right, and I like his idea about, getting the wording and reading over ones, and we can amend or put an addendum to any ordinance we pick out from another city to fit ours more properly. But I want you all to keep one thing in mind. The more of these ordinances that you put on this city, if you'll notice in here, it clearly states that the fire marshal is paid, and it also states in here that all of this, all of the policing of this is to be done by the police department, and the more ordinances you get, the more offenses you're going to get, and the more money you're going to spend on a police force, and
But I'm trying to look at, I'm looking at this as protecting you and you and you and anybody else that's a neighbor in this city from anything else from another neighbor that's not paying attention to what they need to be doing. You want some out there, you want your next door neighbor out there shooting an automatic weapon or semi-automatic weapon and he's 50 foot away? If you don't have an ordinance, there may be something,
But
maybe.
see, that's like what John said right there. The same law that would be instituted in Briarwood Bay or Highsaw would have to go for anybody else around here.
Well,
Because it would be a citywide
but what I'm saying is we'd have
ordinance.
to put some kind of footage in there, whether it be 50 foot, 500 foot, 100 foot, whatever we decide on as a council.
This one had 1,000 foot.
Yeah, I
in
saw
there,
that.
and
That's a pretty
what,
good distance.
What, about a fifth of a mile, somewhere in there?
But,
So-
yeah, we need to put some, what I'm saying is.
That's pretty scary.
I'm not, like I said, I don't want to, I'm not going to, I would not adopt these in their entirety for any reason. I'm not going to say, okay, we're going to do this one, this one, and this one. I would not do that.
I'm certainly glad to hear you say that.
Well,
Because
we
when I
want-
read this,
But I'm really trying to do things, you know, do you want your neighbors, I didn't know they even had a fence ordinance, but do you want your neighbor to put up a fence and then 5 years down the road it's laying over on your property, but you don't really have any backing from your city, because it's not an ordinance? And your neighbor's not gonna keep up the fence? Yes or no?
I do think that these are extenuating circumstances.
Well, I understand that, Mike.
I mean,
But-
now, I'm glad to
Did you
see
understand
you're all
what-
futuristic, but I just,
But-
for right
but
now,
Mike-
I think we need to compile the
Well, you're
ordinances.
grandfathering after that point.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I know, but I think we need to create ordinances,
But
compile them.
do you want your
as we
neighbor's
need.
fence to block it where you can't see coming around the corner? If there's a corner in the road right there? That ordinance is in with that fence ordinance.
And his grandfather.
I probably know more about fence ordinances than anybody in this city.
Well,
Well, he
right.
just
Because I've
used
been to
as-
court a
I'm
million
just using, I'm
times.
just using.
Mike, you could do maybe some sort of a fence ordinance that addresses the safety concerns, but maybe not necessarily the,
Well, see, they already have
prettiness
this.
of the
Yeah, I don't care
fence.
They already have this
You
in
know.
universal building code, and who are we gonna hire as an officer to ride herd on that? This is addressed in the universal building code, and in every state it's the same.
Does our officers have the power to enforce?
Sure they do, they
And
wear
the
badges and guns.
If the officer
Are
writes.
you gonna,
Hey,
are you willing to pay for this officer at this time?
No, Mike, what I'm saying is that those are the two concepts that we need to consider, the fact that we have a lot of incapability of our own police force to enforce anything because they don't have the statute behind them to enforce a state law or federal law.
Well, and even if they do, we don't get the monies off of it. That's what I'm trying, that's the point I was trying to get across.
But do any of you see the necessity
And we're not trying to create a money machine.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know
I'm
that,
not-
but do any of y'all see the need right now to create a phone book of ordinances? Or do you think we need to select just a few to start off so as not to bog everybody
I
down?
thought we'd already agreed on that. I thought we'd already agreed on
I
that.
think there really needs to be.
Just let's go with this, let's take this slow and easy.
I thought we-
Because when I read this,
I
I'm
thought we
like,
had
oh
10
my
minutes
God, you know?
Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing, trying to make a list? He asked us to,
That's what I'm saying.
Give ideas.
And Lee, I told you 4 times that your idea was excellent of getting several cities' ordinances, our size or a little bit bigger, and then selecting certain things out of there, certain things
Right.
that we need,
But-
not just because it sounds pretty in the writing's
I understand that.
It's something that addresses our problems here,
I understand that.
our potential problems.
I understand that. But the last question I thought Councilman Graham brought up was, what ordinances, do you have any idea of any ordinances that you might want to put on a list to look at, you don't
I'll
want to just
write
call
down-
Franks and say, okay, I need a copy of all your ordinances. Rather say, you know, you want to get a copy of the pet ordinance, you want to get a copy of the gun ordinance. I mean, I think that's what we're trying to do right now.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea?
And I agree, you might need certain things, and
Do you have
I
an
just
idea
don't
what you want to put on the
know,
list,
I
though?
just don't know how you're gonna enforce this. Now, right now, what we've got, and it's probably unofficial, but when we see a stray dog, we have a lady that is very humane, and she picks up the animal, and the city actually writes her a check out of general funds. And it's a very humane way of doing things, and it's just been going real sweet. Now, I agree, in the future, we might have a more significant problem with that, but right now we don't. But I see that if you want to dove off into the future and set an ordinance, then that ordinance, according to this thing, if you used any of its language, that you would have to have a certification process for the dog catcher, the kennel, the size, the location.
I wouldn't even know-
We don't wanna go there.
I wouldn't even, I was trying to do the simple things, like,
But you don't think that's simple enough by getting a humane person to pick up the dog and she adopts them out and we pay her
all I
enough to?
want is a pet ordinance that if, I'm telling you, if a cop goes down to the dollar store and somebody's been in there shopping for 2 hours and turns around outside and they got their dog in the car, that they can get a ticket written. And it's breaking a city law.
Well, generally,
or
those
city
type of
ordinance.
people get their ass beat by the plants in the store.
Well,
But I see what you're saying, yeah.
You know, I don't, like I said, I don't want this 5, 6, 8 pages, however long the pet ordinance is. All I'm asking is, do you want to put it on the list
Put
of
an
stuff to look
animal
at?
ordinance on the list then,
We
Lee.
could
Why
put
don't
an
you
animal
just
ordinance
say
on the
that?
list.
Well, I'm trying to
That's
get
what we're gonna
agreement
do. Listen,
before
We don't
I,
have to agree. If you want it on the list, put it on the list.
That's,
would y'all like to see a gun one, to some extent, about addressing
firearms.
firearms of some nature, automatic, semi-automatic,
I'm putting it on the list.
anything else?
Fence lines. Anybody else? I would like to have some input from our people who came in tonight. I don't want it just between us. What I'm asking you as the audience,
We have a litter ordinance, so we don't even need to address
that's
that.
exactly right, Mike. Mike,
We got a
almost,
better
Mike,
Don't say what's
Mike,
not
would you
supposed
do
to
this?
be on
Would you
the
take
list,
these
Mike.
things in front of you and just push them away?
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
I just,
These were just,
they're not a good guideline.
but this is an open forum. We're not voting on anything that's gonna affect the city in the future. We're just trying to get a workshop done. I just want to hear some input from you that come in tonight on a weekend like we are here on Christmas, to get something started so we can develop ordinances that fit our community. By that said, Mr. Wakeman.
Well, I agree with Mike. The city needs to have ordinances. We need to have the ordinances address the issues at hand.
Do you have any specifically?
I would, not offhand, I don't, but I know animals are a problem. And if you do an animal ordinance, that's gonna be a tough issue to do. And a gun ordinance is gonna be a tough issue to do.
Well, but I'm
Because of the makeup of the city.
Absolutely.
But I'm not doing, have you read these ordinances?
Yep.
I'm not even thinking about it, even
Oh, I know,
an
that
eighth or
animal
ninth of
ordinance,
these.
that animal ordinance that was attached to that is exactly the same one that was rejected by the city council a few months ago.
Yeah, I'm just looking at something to protect, something simple to protect a
Well,
pet in a car.
Mr.
or-
Gullickson was asked to do a nuisance ordinance that was supposedly gonna take care of nuisance animals and things of that nature. But, instead, he came back with a whole stack of Pflugerville ordinances.
Can we do a noise and what we say?
Nuisance ordinance. See, that's what we've got right now informally, but we can make it formal. If there is a stray dog that is left out by some unhearted person, we have a lady that picks them up and humanely tries to take care of the dog until she can give it to somebody. And I like that. And if we could formulate an ordinance around something like that, that's fine. But when you're going to telling people they can't let the dog go out and use the bathroom in the yard, you're going to lose me.
Mike,
I don't think
we
we're
need,
trying to do
let's,
that, though.
let's stay focused here. We keep going.
Well, I think that would be focused on an ordinance.
I know, but what I'm saying is, we got an animal ordinance. Now we're gonna develop the languaging to cover letting them go to boo-boo
Okay, you
outside.
better walk softly on that one. You're
We
going to have
will,
a...
we will. I have animals too. We will. Now, let me throw another ordinance. There is safety issues concerning and trash out the wazoo that I have picked up on my own road with people fishing underneath the bridges. I want us to put together a languaging of dealing with that, because it's degrading property value, it's adding an eyesore to our community, and there are times people are parking right up to the road to where we have 80-year-old people pulling out on the 155 at the last minute seeing traffic. We don't want that. So I'm going to put down bridge fishing as an overview ordinance aspect that we want to address. I want,
Are you
I
talking
just,
about littering related with bridge
I don't want
fishing?
anybody, you cannot qualify somebody's actions by hoping that they are good citizens. I would rather them fish if they can, but are they going to be good enough citizens to park correctly? Or are they going to throw their diapers and condoms out the door? And I have picked up those objects like that.
John, are you certain that that's not covered under our ordinance already?
No, it's
I thought
not.
that's why we established that ordinance, because there was
Which ordinance was
I
that?
don't know.
Need to look at
We
your
have a litter ordinance. And there was some,
Well, you gotta catch somebody in the act of throwing something out the
well,
window.
I mean, wasn't Billy and Donna up here on the bridge, didn't that ordinance?
They're
kinda-
still down there fishing.
Yeah, but I mean, they can catch them. I mean, all they'd have to do
Well-
is set up a camera, and if they threw something down, boom, our ordinance would get them.
Mike, if we eliminate what draws in there, we don't have the problem with everything from that point back.
They don't, they can orders where they can't even pull down their
Yes,
two
and
fish.
put it, and we could, and I'm not here to
I'm designed
design,
against the law.
I'm not here to design the ordinance. I'm here to say I'm gonna address it.
Okay.
Now, I just want subjects, that if we want to address something of that nature, I don't want to get caught in the weeds here and get stuck in something and discuss it right now as to what that's gonna impact. We're gonna discuss that ordinance. I'm gonna put it before us to think about in languaging of all the various issues, where it's a standoff rule for parking from so much distance from the bridge. So if somebody wants to fish from the bridge, is gonna have to walk a mile to get there. But I do not want somebody to have the ability to do what he's done to my road and what he's doing down here at this other bridge in front of Donovan's
It's a
place.
constant offense.
And people who are not sensitive to it may think it's worthless to have that, but I'm sensitive to it because I live back there. So
I don't think you would have too many objections for an ordinance of that caliber. Now, this is one thing I want to say, and you can put this one down. One of the things covered in here, which is in all city ordinances, is the dilapidated buildings, high grass with rats and yada, yada, yada. This old church building up here, we've been trying to get some ruling on getting it tore down, but church buildings, like any municipal-owned property, is tax exempt. You can't file a lien against it or tearing it down. These ordinances here made a provision, and it works good if you have an actual taxed owner on the property. You can set all of the penalties and fines you want on that building, and it's a defunct church. It's going to fall down and injure somebody. I think that's...
Mike, that's a grandfather issue.
What?
You cannot create an
Oh,
ordinance.
no, I'm saying we need to create an ordinance for something like that.
To happen, that's fine.
But,
Okay.
let me reiterate what I'm trying to say. When you create these ordinances, let's get them to fit our city. Don't go to
Absolutely,
seed on them.
Mike.
These ordinances here go to seed. They go to seed. They don't, they address an issue and they go to seed on it. Like 150 people showed up and got to put a sentence in. Don't you, isn't that how you all read it? And I just think we need to be
Do me a
very
favor, can you
cautious.
just throw all that off the desk? You keep referring back to
I
that.
know, but
Throw
I'm
it
just
on the
saying,
desk.
I'm just pre-warning you all that you better watch your language in the ordinance, or you're gonna have a lot of people that thinks they're being tooth and bind by these ordinances. That's all I'm gonna say.
Is there any other subjects,
Hey,
Bree?
John,
Yes.
I mean, I've heard good things from each of you, but wouldn't one way to handle this would be for the mayor maybe to appoint a council member and maybe a couple citizens to look at these possible ordinances? Because I agree that, there are 3/4 of that stuff in there is nothing but junk.
It is.
It doesn't apply to us, period.
Absolutely.
Why couldn't the mayor appoint somebody?
We
and
did.
Like maybe look at a fence ordinance, what Mr. Wakeman said, we need some type of animal ordinance, but it's gonna be a tough one. It's gonna be very difficult.
It is gonna be.
As far as a firearms ordinance, I'm a guy I do a lot of shooting.
Right.
And if I wanna go down to the water and
We have
kill a
snakes,
snake,
we have
that's right,
things
I wanna
we-
be able to do that.
Well, and
I
I'm
don't
not trying to bring up something to keep you from doing that.
Hold on.
But I don't want you going out there with a submachine gun doing it.
Well, I understand that, but what I'm saying is maybe, and let this appointed party work on a few ordinances that apply to our city, and then make a presentation to the council. Because I think what I'm hearing now is there's a set of documents in front of you, and all of you see it a little bit different, and all we're accomplishing is sitting here arguing over
This
what's
is
going to
too
happen.
arduous, you're right.
Now, you're absolutely right, but what you didn't hear, and I'm not really I'm letting them handle this meeting intentionally. This is the result of the mayor appointing a committee.
That was Steve Gullick.
It was Steve Gullison and Cindy. I appointed a committee.
Okay,
This is their results, so I've done that.
okay.
This is what they came back with.
Who was on that committee, Mayor?
Gullison and Cindy Craig.
Okay.
And this is the result of what they came back with. So we did that already.
And this was just to start us into the dialogue as a go-by, not anything that we're going to obligate ourselves to, per se, this whole instrument here I'm holding. This was simply something to stimulate us into understanding that we're trying to get a situation of not having a chaotic grandfathering and give our guys here some local authority. That's all we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Now, we may not have but 3 or 4, and that's it.
Yeah, and that's what, we've got to find some way, like Pam said, we've got to find some way to pick out these ordinances that apply to our city.
Absolutely.
And I'm not sure how you do that, but that's what we need to do.
One ordinance at a time.
Yeah.
Well,
And that's exactly right. We need to do one ordinance at a time, and we need to tear that sucker apart.
Well, and that's why we were trying to start a list, because how can, like I said, you can't call Franks and all the rest of them and say, oh, can I have a list of all your ordinances? It'd be too,
I have 5 things here.
yeah.
And one thing that we're not going to discuss is sidewalks. Okay, is there anybody else have something besides the 5 things I have? Even in the audience, I'm looking.
Did you write down the dilapidated building ordinance? Because that's something, and see, there again, you can go to seed on that.
Okay, I got it.
Well, we're
Mike.
going to have to
I
know
mean,
this
when
like
it's-
we do everything else.
When it's
I
a
mean,
harmful thing, now, somebody had called up here, did you tell me somebody called up here and there was complaining about some old cow barn out here in the field? I mean, we don't need to get off and stuff like
No,
that.
well,
This needs to be.
no, that was,
like I said, that stuff is going to be grandfathered in.
Yeah, but I'm talking about, there's an old tin building been down here
Well, I
since
understand, but
1900, and it's a
Even
cow
if we pass
barn.
something now, there's nothing we can do about it.
Right.
It'd be from that day forward.
Well, now, I don't know about that, because what if a building that was
It would have to
in
fall into
position right
disrepair
now?
after
That's
the
what I'm
ordinance is
talking about.
passed.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And then it would be grandfathered, it'd fall in, and that's our wording we have to put
That's
in.
right.
Fall into disrepair
That's
from
right.
this day forward.
Okay, so let's get back to what we're going to try to do. We're going to make a list, and then we're going to narrow it down. If y'all want to go at that pace of 1 or 2, I think 1 a month is too slow, because things change every 2 years.
As long as you have time, John, for everybody to address it and see what the people think about it, I would, you could do 2 if you wanted, or 3, but I would want it really spelled out, and I would want it generally accepted and not crammed down
Mike,
somebody's
now that we
throat.
have a body that's willing to come up here and have meetings to do this, we can do it. We have a quorum now to hold. So we're 2 months behind now. So let's start doing something constructive.
Okay.
That's what we've been trying to do.
When
But
you're saying we're 2 months behind, I don't quite understand that.
I know a lot of things probably fly over other people's heads too.
Well, could you clarify that for me, please?
We had a special call meeting to start addressing ordinance. We didn't have a quorum.
Well, the meeting was called in the middle of the afternoon. A lot of people came to.
What I'm getting to, a meeting was called. Several of us who have jobs made accommodations for it. The meeting was not met because we did not have a quorum. Stop me when I start lying. Now, we have people seriously thinking about doing the people's work. We're going to get together and start doing this on a timely basis with no games played. That's all we're trying to do. We're not trying to play a game of gotcha
Yeah. Let me just say this.
or play a game of power.
Yeah.
Oh, what can I do to interrupt the flow of things?
Yeah. But
I'm
then-
not getting my way today.
Let me just
So
say.
let's get back to this.
Right.
We're gonna make a list, and we're gonna address these, whatever number, few at a time, however, to get everybody on the same page.
Right.
But we're gonna be constructive and taking every journey starts with the first step. This is our first step, finally, and this is where we are. So back to the original intent of what I'm doing here. Is there anybody in the audience or anybody on this body that wants to add to this list for us to start making decisions on focus?
I think that we've got a good
I have
start right
nothing
there.
further to add to your list,
And
Mr. Graham.
Lee, I think that's a good idea.
Well, then,
If
we're
we
gonna
had
find out the
access-
list. You want me to read out the things I have on the list?
Yeah, but if Lee or somebody else, or we could get secretaries to kind of like, see if we could get something off the computer of particulars, not to get the whole ordinance from people, because I'm sure Tyler's would be,
No, I don't want to get tired, it's too
Boxes.
big a population.
I think what we ought to do is get specifics. whatever we have brought forward here, we need to get that specific ordinance from the cities, like you said. It's a good idea, and not just get the whole thing, because they don't apply to us.
Well, and that's why I said 2 or 3 towns, that way you can.
Does Berryville have these ordinances, do you know? Well, Berryville is kind of a comparable,
You could, I mean, 'cause I was
Or
gonna take,
Frankston,
I was just kinda wanting to take 3 and just kinda mix match, see what, you know, not take any of them in their entirety for each city, but just say, okay, we like A, B,
You'd be broke by
F,
a week.
I, L, whatever, however their number of letters on each one.
I
They
agree
put
with you.
together and.
And I just say another thing, let's not go to seed on these ordinances.
Mike, we're gonna address them together as a body,
Okay.
and we'll be in agreement.
All right,
before we
I'm
bring it
glad
to a
everybody's
vote.
ready to throw this in the trash can
Well,
and
at
get
this
some
point,
ordinances for
well-
Coffee City.
Well, we've had our first meeting, or we're having our first meeting with an hour left. Now, we're willing to stop at this point of 6 individual comments here of various ordinances we want to discuss. Anybody else have anything to offer? Chris?
Mayor ProTem, I've got animal, firearms, fence, bridge fishing, and condemnation. What's the 6th one?
Nuisance.
Nuisance.
What if, did you get the,
Condemnation.
is that what you call the dilapidated buildings?
I think I would fall under nuisance.
All nuisance.
One of the things we experienced, just commenting again on nuisance, of course, it's within the capability of, but we've tried to have venues over across the bay here behind me. And in the effort of trying to provide what we promised to that group that came was the fact we was going to have music. We had that taken away from us because it's outside the city limits. If we create a nuisance ordinance where someone can get a permit within the body of the city in order to have an event, it prevents someone from taking over that event with just a simple phone call after all the work that went into doing that. That's the type of situations we need to address. And that is
You don't know, like you're gonna do it every weekend or something like that.
so when we do something that tries to bring value to the city, we can't have somebody that doesn't want the city to do anything take advantage of what we're trying to achieve. So those kind of things is why we're developing the ordinances, in order to do the things that we're doing to make our city something better than what it is, or maybe to hopefully provide something for us without cost directly. So with that said, we have these 6 items. Have I stimulated any other thought from the gallery or here on the board, or the council, I should say, as to any other things we should address?
And we will also have a pre-meeting before any vote is done on these ordinances.
We're gonna have a lot of these meetings.
And
I think
another
we have-
thing,
I
I
think-
wish we would do this, John. When we start these ordinances here, I think that we need to have input from everybody, and we have the means of conveying this information to the public. We have a mail out, which we never use. We got a mail out, and I think this would be a good way if we start having meetings on these. We need to use our mail out to inform everybody of what we're up to.
I'm not opposed to
And that way, when they're here, they will have a say on what this ordinance is all about. And nothing will be crammed down somebody's throat and say, well, I didn't know. We got a mail out. It's supposed to hit everybody in this city. And I say we use it when we get 2 of these or whatever a month, and we get them, we start discussing them, or if we get them drawn up or whatever to discuss them, I think that we need to have the mail out.
What's
Get it
up?
up there.
I think that's a great idea.
What's the cost with the mail out?
Well, let's see.
Well, it's more now, but.
It's gonna be about 50 cents a pop.
It's more now. I thought we got some sort of a different class, didn't we? What is it?
30 cents?
300.
$300?
300.
Does that count the new population we
Nope.
just brought in? That counts for our $300 a
It was
pop.
$100 last time, it'd be
Yeah,
almost
and
free.
in that first letter,
We don't
okay,
get
save
both
money,
bills.
in that first letter, just say, this is the first 2 folks. So if you want to get a say-so, you better show up every month.
Mike, I think in order to
I
take care
can
of that,
justify $300.
in order to take care of the cost, I don't think we need to do this during the preliminary development stage to the point of where if we're in here arguing what is, I don't need to send out a letter to discuss that with everybody in the city. When we start getting it developed down to a point of where we're starting to see some recognition what we're trying to achieve, then we do a mail out and let them come in and tweak it with us.
You mean after the first two or after you've compiled all six?
No, each ordinance individual. I don't want to send out a mailer, it costs the town $300 to say, we're going to discuss an animal ordinance. That's not really quite.
No, I'm saying you could send out a mailer if you compile the first two ordinances. You draft the first two ordinances. You send out the mailer saying this is the first two. Show up for the meeting. When they show up for the meeting, you can say.
We already have something.
We're going to say we got two next month, so we're not going to send you a mail out. You know now. The first one was to alert you.
Well,
that
some
we're
people may
drafting
not feel
ordinances.
sensitive to, say, an animal ordinance versus, say, a fence ordinance.
Then they will have no recourse when the ordinance is passed.
I understand, but we have to do some kind of notification for everybody to kind of see the general attitude or the progressions that we're making.
Well, how much is the newspaper ad for that, the short one?
Well,
Depends on how long it is.
No,
Probably
I'm not talking about
probably-
the whole thing. I'm talking
Yeah.
about a notification.
$20.
Michael,
There you go.
wait a second, not everybody gets a price of paper either. What we could do is, when we do the mailer, we could give ourselves a timeline. If we're gonna do two this month, we could say, within 2 months, or say May or April, whatever, we're gonna do these two ordinances, and by July or August, we're gonna do these two on this such and such date. Already have our dates preset, that way it gives us a closer timeline instead of, okay, we'll worry about that next year.
Yeah.
We could do that and do it all in one mailer and have it covered.
Deadlines do help and make people make decisions.
Okay.
Okay? So I have